obviously, Windy bringing it up that it looks like the Lakers not likely. He mentioned Miami and Philly, but here's what Adrian Wojnarowski said in yesterday's trade deadline special. Kyle Lowry is very much available. Philly, Miami Heat, there are a number of teams engaged. The Raptors, they're going to work with Lowry on where he might like to play if they're going to do a deal, but here's one team not to rule out, the Lakers. Now, meanwhile, Lowry talked about being on the trading block following last night's Raptors win. Take a listen.
It was kind of weird tonight, not knowing what the next step would be, just with, understanding that there's things that could possibly be done on the front of me and then other guys in our team and in the organization. So it's kind of weird, I'm going to be honest with you. But, it was great to get a win. It was great. It felt good to be out there. And, it would have been, of course, it would have been crazier if it was in Toronto. I'm assuming, I would think, but it was different tonight for sure. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? No one knows what's going to happen, but it was definitely for sure different.
The unknown is always difficult, regardless of the situation. Stephen A., do this for me. Let's pretend he's going to the Lakers. If that is to happen, does that make them a title favorite?
No. It does not. The only thing that's going to make the Lakers a title favorite is the complete health of Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Kyle Lowry has nothing to do with that. And that's not to cast any aspersions on Kyle Lowry. I've been covering Kyle Lowry since he was in high school in Philadelphia when I was writing for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and then he went to Villanova. He's a rough rider. He's rugged. He's a rugged defender. Obviously, he can make big-time shots, as we saw en route to him helping Kawhi Leonard capture a championship in Toronto with the Raptors against the Golden State Warriors a couple of years ago, although we all know they probably would have got swept if Kevin Durant was healthy. At the end of the day, Kyle Lowry, I apologize, is a damn good basketball player. This is not to cast any aspersions on him. But when you look at what is transpiring in Brooklyn, New York, with that three-headed monster, assuming they show up to actually play instead of all three taking a night off, okay? Even though Kevin Durant's injured, and I understand that. The point is, if they're on the court together and healthy, they're going to be the favorites. Nobody is going to be the favorites above them unless Anthony Davis is healthy, which I don't believe is going to be the case, which is why I raised that flag, Max, yesterday when I talked about him and Kevin Durant, well, more so Kevin Durant than him, being out a bit longer than we expected. I think there's something suspicious going on. I don't think either is going to be 100% as it pertains to Anthony Davis, since that's the topic of discussion right now. If you recall, when he first went down, I said, excuse me, I don't anticipate him being 100% at any point in time this season. And I think that's what's going to be required for the Lakers to be expected to repeat as champions. I don't think that's going to be the case. And that's why I say Kyle Lowry or anybody, I don't give a damn if it's Kyle Lowry, Lonzo Ball. It doesn't matter. If Anthony Davis and LeBron James are not healthy, the Lakers are not the favorites, period.
I see it differently. Surprise, surprise. I think it's possible that AD is never completely healthy this year, but the same thing is possible for Durant.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm going to assume for a second that everyone's going to be healthy.
Okay,
that the Lakers are at full strength and the Nets are at full strength. Because that's really what we're talking about when we look at these two teams.
Fair enough.
And I have come around to thinking that even if the Lakers are totally healthy, they can't beat the Nets as is. I mean, they can't is strong, but I'm taking the Nets.
So you've come
I'm
around
taking the Nets.
My way of thinking, you've come around.
I'm taking the Nets, based on what I've seen.
Very
James
proud.
Harden's playing out of his mind. Mm-hmm. So is Kyrie Irving. You add Kevin Durant, who's the best player on the team, I don't think they'll be able to be stopped. Because there are three of those dudes. Lakers got two of those dudes. Of those dudes, right? Who's Kyle Lowry? Like, Dennis Schroeder's a nice point guard. I think he's played so well, he's an average starting NBA point guard, which is a great thing. That means out of 30 teams, you're in that 15-ish range. Lot of really good point guards. It means you're a good player. Kyle Lowry's better than that. Because Kyle Lowry now has championship experience. Wasn't always that way. You talk about how he's a rough rider and this and that. By the way, if he wound up in Miami, it'd be a reunion with Dragic. But remember when they were on the same team, who's better? We don't know. Kyle Lowry, throughout his career, to me, had issues in the playoffs. And Masai Ujiri challenged him when he got to Toronto, and I think made him a better player. And with reps and experience in the playoffs, he got to be a championship player. And as you keep pointing out, what Kawhi needs to do, a championship leader, because he was the vocal leader of that team, right? That's what the Lakers need. They need a big three to counteract the big three in Brooklyn. That's really the only big three in the league. Kyle Lowry is just good enough, given his championship pedigree, given what he can do on a nightly basis, to be considered the third wheel in a legit big three. Like, people sleep on this. Last year, the Lakers had a big three because playoff Rondo is an all-star. He's not an all-star. Rondo ain't even very good, I think, most of the year. Playoff start, that's an all-star. So the Lakers had Rondo to go with LeBron and AD. Don't have that anymore. And maybe Schroeder can be that. Maybe, well, let's see if he can elevate, but we haven't seen it yet. We know Kyle Lowry can. The Lakers, if they got Kyle Lowry, would once again become my favorites to win it all.
Not for me. And I don't disagree with how you described Kyle Lowry. I'm with you there. I think he's a better version of Dennis Schroeder. I don't disagree with that. I definitely think he's a slight upgrade in that regard. He can make big-time shots. He can defend, etc. But I think that when you look at the Brooklyn Nets, this is lethal weapon 3. That's what it is. When Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant are on the court, it's lethal weapon 3. There's only one trio that can do something with that lethal weapon 3. And that's if there was another KD on Golden State with Steph Curry and a healthy Klay Thompson. That is the only threesome that I believe can compete or exceed what this lethal weapon 3 can throw at you. They're just too sensational. And I think that they're too potent offensively, particularly from the perimeter and particularly from the free throw line. As great as LeBron is, and we all know that LeBron is the best, here's the reality. He's somewhat of a liability at the free throw line, particularly when you go compared to Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant, who all shoot better than 85% from the free throw line, okay? They're money from the line. We got to pay attention to that. Anthony Davis, sure, there's no answer for him in the interior, even though he's capable of taking you outside. But he ain't Kevin Durant, okay? So when you look at LeBron with an Anthony Davis and a Kyle Lowry, even though that is a big 3, and I definitely would respect Kyle Lowry by highlighting that, it doesn't compare to Brooklyn, which means, to answer the question directly, they wouldn't be the favorites. He doesn't propel them to favorite status over lethal weapon 3 in Brooklyn.
I think he does because at least, look, LeBron is the best, and we've seen that it takes more than one superstar to counteract them. Mm-hmm. And AD, if fully healthy, is and it's a matchup problem every night.
Right.
They need a third guy. It doesn't need to be as good as Kyrie.
For the purposes of this show,
yeah,
let's be very, very clear where I stand. If Kevin Durant is healthy, then I modify my position about LeBron being the best in the world.
Well, Let me be
very, very clear.
We have to wait and
see. If Kevin Durant is healthy, he's a problem.
Yep.
We have to
wait and see.
You understand?
I don't know if KD is healthy. He's the best player in the world. Better than LeBron.
He's a problem for LeBron. He's a problem for Anthony Davis. I'll tell you this.
He's never been better than LeBron so far.
We beg to differ at finals, but I understand because he had Steph and Clay. But let me say this to you. Yeah. KD, I promise you this. On better than 50%.
He's averaging 30 right now, probably somewhere.
On better than 50% shooting.
Look,
I promise you that.
Here's the issue with the Nets. It's never happened before, ever, that you have 3 guys who can all get their own shot at historically elite levels and hit them from anywhere at historically elite levels. In the paint, finishing, from the free throw line, 3-point range, mid-range, doesn't matter where. The Lakers need more ammunition, even if healthy, to counteract that.
Which is why they wouldn't be the favorites over Brooklyn.
No, Kyle Lowry's pretty good. Kyle Lowry's just good enough to be the third wheel in the big 3.
Harden hasn't unleashed. He's busy trying to play point guard. He hasn't unleashed his offensive arsenal in Brooklyn.
He hasn't even played.
Excuse me, you understand what I'm saying? It's not like Harden can't do more. He could, and he's been fantastic already. Keep sleeping.
Who's sleeping?
I'm just saying.
By the way, guys, Kyle Lowry turns 35 today, so happy birthday to him. No active player ever has been traded on his birthday.
He's a good dude. He really is.
We'll see what city he's celebrating it in. That's for sure. It looks like he's got quite. I also want to mention, I know you just said it, Stephen A., but Ray Lewis will be with us in Jim and Buddy Boeheim, so that'll be a lot of fun as well. Wendy, talk to me. Who's the biggest name that could be dealt today?
The Raptors right now control pretty much the entire trade market because they have Kyle Lowry and they have Norman Powell, who is one of the more desirable role players. And those are the 2 guys who potentially could be the most affected guys get moved today. Now, as of yesterday, the Raptors weren't thrilled with their offers for Kyle Lowry. They're basically negotiating with only two teams, with Miami and with Philadelphia. And from what I can glean from people I'm talking to, neither one of them are putting the premium package that they could offer for Kyle Lowry. And that's frustrated the Raptors a little bit. And part of the issue is that Kyle Lowry wants a contract extension, or at least a new contract after this season, somewhere in the neighborhood of $25 million a year over 2 years. And that's an issue certainly for Philadelphia and could contribute to their hesitancy. But I think before we see anything major happen, we're going to see a Lowry trade. And the reason I think that'll happen first is that to do this deal for a guy who makes $30 million like Kyle Lowry does, it's going to have to be a 3 or 4 for 1 trade. Philly or Miami is going to have to send out 3 or 4 players for Kyle Lowry. The Raptors do not have enough roster spots to make that deal. So I suspect, and from what I've been told talking to other teams in the league, they will then potentially try to reroute some of the players that they receive out to a third team. And so that will take some time. And that's one of the things that's holding up some of the trades. But I expect Kyle Lowry to have a new address in either Miami or Philly by 3 o'clock.
Wendy, always good to see you, buddy. I've missed you. Here's the question. I know we hear Miami. I know we hear Philadelphia. It's a 2-part question. Number one, which team do you believe needs Lowry most of the two? And question number 2, why are not the Clippers in the mix here as one of those primary teams, knowing how desperately they need a point guard?
So, Stephen A., the Clippers just do not have the ammunition to make the trade. They would need somewhere in the neighborhood of $24, $25 million in outgoing salaries. They have no first-round picks that they can trade, and they have no attractive young players that they can trade. Frankly, they just don't have anything that the Raptors are excited about, even though it would be great for them. And yesterday, there was some rumors going around that the Los Angeles Lakers were interested in trading for Kyle Lowry as well. But I frankly don't believe that that's true. I think that's a smokescreen thrown up by Toronto because they're trying to get better offers out of Miami and Toronto. And I know this is a little bit technical, so I apologize. But both the Lakers and the Clippers are hard capped. They have a hard cap that they could not go over. And so what that means is that they can't trade $23 million or $24 million in players and get back Kyle Lowry, who makes $30 million. They can't take that extra money. They have to trade $30 million in players to get back. And for the Lakers, that would possibly mean trading 3 or 4 rotation players. It's just not going to happen. It's not a realistic trade function. And the Clippers, the only player that they have who's young, who has any value, who would be interested in LA would be Luke Kennard. But Kennard signed a $56 million contract extension, and not everybody in the league likes that contract. So really it's about Duncan Rob. Yes. So really it's about, right now, from what I am told, Duncan Robinson is in the offer from the Heat to Toronto, and Tyler Hero is not. And the Raptors would really like Tyler Hero to be in that deal, but the premium package is not being offered. And from Philadelphia, they are permitted to trade 21 and 23 first-round picks to this year's pick in 2023. Plus, they have Tyrese Maxey, their young guard out of Kentucky, and plus they have Matisse Thybulle. They would like, in Toronto, they would like all of those pieces. And from what I have been told, Philly has not been willing to put that whole package in there. So part of the reason for this delay is that Kyle Lowry is not getting, he's not drawing the offers. And part of it, Stephen A., is because there's only 2 teams bidding. And I think Philly could really benefit from him, but I'm not so sure they want to trade everything left they have in their trade bucket to get him.
Wendy, we heard the Knicks might be buyers, and then nothing major at the trade deadline. I'm looking at the Celtics and Danny Ainge's penchant for making moves, and the fact that they have these 2 dynamic wings, but they're not only competing for this year, they have to look forward at a conference that has a big 3 in Brooklyn, where Milwaukee and Philadelphia keep getting better. Is there anything at all like a sleeper move that is on anyone's radar for Danny Ainge and the Celtics?
So here's the thing with the Celtics. The reality is, I don't know if their ownership is gung-ho on going into the tax this season with this team, with this Eastern Conference, where they're looking at Philly and they're looking at Brooklyn. Because, even though it's a big market, the Celtics have been careful about spending in the past. And they're in a season where they're not having fans, they're losing money. trading for a guy like Aaron Gordon would put them in the salary into the tax, would limit what they could do going forward, would take multiple young players or first-round picks, plus eat up a lot of salary. And I just don't know if that's the bullet that they want to fire right now. And I'm going to tell you guys something. If and when Aaron Gordon gets traded today, because I think he's going to, people are going to be in their feelings. Because my feel is that Aaron Gordon is not demanding a big package on the market. The Denver Nuggets are leading, as far as I've been told last night, and from what I've heard is being offered, it's not going to blow people away. And maybe Orlando doesn't do the deal because of it. But if he goes to Denver for, a secondary starter and like a young prospect and like no first-round pick, the fans in Boston are going to be upset. There's going to be players, like Damian Lillard, who would love to have Aaron Gordon on his team, is going to be upset. There's going to be fans in Orlando who are going to be like, wait a minute, we heard Aaron Gordon was on and off the market for 2 years, and this is what you got? So I think there's a lot of dynamics pressing down the Aaron Gordon market, and it may leave the Celtics with some egg on their face if they let him go and don't make that deal.
Wendy, what team in the NBA right now do you believe absolutely positively needs to make a move? No matter what, they've got to find a way to make a move today. Who is that team?
The Clippers need a guard. And I don't know whether or not the Clippers can trade for a guard or if it's going to be something that they sign. But they need a guard. And I don't know. They won by 30 last night. There are times where they look great. But they have not been a good clutch team. At the end of last year, they have not been a good clutch team this year. Defensively is an issue, too. And so they made an offer for Lonzo Ball in the last week. That would be a very intriguing player for them to trade for. But I think that there's a number of offers that the Pelicans have for Lonzo, and it's not even clear to executives out there whether David Griffin is actually going to trade Lonzo Ball or he's doing like some vetting to see who might be interested in him in the free agent market this summer. So that would be a great pick. But again, the Clippers are not permitted to trade any first-round picks. They do have a couple of second-round picks that they can trade. But to get any player back who makes a meaningful salary, like, for example, let's just say the Pelicans wanted to trade Lonzo Ball to L.A., you're looking at probably having to trade Lou Williams. So that's a guy who's a key part of their rotation. And so they're just in a bind with how to be able to talk to them in recent days, have asked about whether they'd be willing to put Marcus Morris on the market because they just don't have much to trade. And look, it's a good problem to have. It's a first world problem because they have a couple of all-stars in their starting lineup who they're paying a lot of money. But I think the Clippers, if they're going to win the West, need some support in that perimeter.